I'm Mariana Cordier. Welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. The celebration of the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has become an opportunity to spend the day in service to the community rather than to be another shopping day for Americans who have the day off from school or work. Henry Hailstock, who comments for this program, will discuss this development. Montgomery County Public Schools are already in the midst of budget season, with testimony from the public to be followed by work sessions by the Board of Education. Jane DeWinter has been following the schools for a long time and will tell us what we should be noticing when we hear news about the public schools. This is the first program of 2014, and a commentator for the show, Ken Jackson, has some thoughts about the year ahead. It should be a busy one, 2 elections and various other events expected and unexpected. Perhaps our other panelists will join in their thoughts. Montgomery College is an essential part of our county, a part we can all be proud of. Jeffery Slavin, mayor of the town of Somerset, is a new member of the Montgomery College Foundation Board. We'll discuss the importance of community colleges and why we can be particularly proud of our own institution. Henry, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, especially when you're hosting.
I appreciate that. So Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday is a service day, and I think it's probably the only federal holiday that is?
So far, it is. In 1883, after all the back and forth struggling and trying to make it a federal holiday, they finally did. But in 1994, Congress, through their wisdom, decided to make it a national day of service. And they charged the corporation of national community organizations to make it happen. And I'm glad it has, because it's the only one. I get tired of...
it's based on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s, vision of
yes.
community to break down bridges.
Part of his dream.
Build bridges, I'm sorry, not build bridges, break down
yes.
barriers.
Yes, it was part of his dream to make the communities in which we have a beloved one, that all people, all God's children, live equally and harmoniously. So this is a day which will be coming up this Monday, January the 20th, for people to go out and empower themselves as individuals to work in the community, make the community a better place, deal with the problems and resolve those issues, those problems, those social problems that we may have. Build bridges, as you say, knock down the barriers that are there, and really empowering the federal government, the state governments, and the local governments to do what's necessary for us as in the community.
Any recommend? Oh, go
I was
ahead.
going to say, well, and that there's also a big county-sponsored project in North Bethesda.
Well, there's 5 locations this
5
year
locations,
for the first
okay.
time. Yeah.
It really is, and see that's what it really wanted. For the individual counties, the individual communities to get out and do things, whether it's picking up trash, whether it's really sitting down and having a forum to discuss the issues, whether it's having the elected officials go out with the individuals in the community and start having that dialogue and doing something about it. That's what it's all about.
So what are some of the recommendations in general? In Bethesda, you're saying that there's going to be this.
Well, at the North Bethesda Marriott Conference Center, and then I'm not sure what the other
The Silver
4
Spring
locations-
Civic Center and
Civic
3 other
Center.
locations, plus a lot of religious institutions are sponsoring events and nonprofit groups.
Right. Well, at the county-sponsored ones, you can just drop in. I think it's between noon and 3, and there'll be projects set up. Like Commission on Children and Youth has been working for the last 2 months to collect toiletries that volunteers who come on Monday will pack into bags to be given to children if and when they're removed from a home.
Clothing drives,
Yeah.
food drives,
Yeah.
going out, cleaning up the community. I've seen a whole community go out in my area, Lake Hollowell. They go out and clean the streams and clean the communities up with all the trash that have blown around and all that. That is great. But also getting out and meeting the neighbors when you're doing something, that's the key, because a lot of us live within a community not knowing who our neighbors are.
Right,
And
the community building,
yes.
sense of belonging, because it's very easy with technology as it is today for people to spend more time, especially the younger folks are spending so much time on their iPads and whatever.
Doesn't that get to you? Doesn't that get to you? You sit down and you have your child there visiting, and then they're on their iPad or their iPhone or whatever, and just putting things aside and just knowing each other. And I think that's what Dr. Martin Luther King wanted, for us to get to know the individual, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are. Right. Once you get to know the individual as an individual, then we have more of an understanding. And that is really, truly the key among all those things. It really is.
That's great. And I know that with the time this of year, it's cold. There are a lot of families that are having hardship, and so these different service programs and projects for gathering food or toiletries or whatever, which have a huge impact in the community. And
yeah, isn't it a shame that you only do this on one day when it should be done 365 days out of the entire year? And I think that's really what Dr. Martin Luther King's vision really was, to do it every day of the year. But since the federal government said we are definitely going to do it one day, it's a start. It's a start.
But our
hopefully
county's
it goes
volunteer
over.
center, of course, you can find opportunities every day of the year to volunteer. So, and I think that was inspired originally throughout the country by Dr. King.
Yes.
To have those.
It's so important, and to encourage our youth to start young in participating in these service projects, I think is important, because then that means they will continue to do so in the future.
And it keeps the memory alive. I think that's the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. Now, my fraternity group focused on building a monument to Dr. Martin Luther King. And just a small group of people focused on that, and we got it done through Congress. Now, it seems to me as though you want to see this thing continue to grow and expand, and as Henry said, to impact on our children, and so that they will feel that this is something they can keep growing and coming closer together as a family.
Well, that's the last word on that part. Jane Winter, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So tell us, what is going on with the budget and the board, the school board?
School board, right. Well, the superintendent released his recommended operating budget right before the holidays in December. And last Thursday, and tonight, in fact, this Thursday, I know this dates the show, there'll be testimony offered by various PTAs and other individuals, with their reaction with the operating budget. And then the board has a couple work sessions where they can follow up to questions they've asked and make any adjustments they may want to before they send the budget to the county council in February.
Anything jumping out at you?
There's no huge, earth-shattering things. I mean, one of the things I think is that we're seeing is a little bit of progress on Dr. Starr's focus on social and emotional health that he had been working. There had been a work group from the Department of Student Services to support the idea of wraparound services, or when there's kids in trouble or in need in the school, that the school can offer more support or connect them to community support. So there's some money in for some positions for pupil personnel workers and psychologists. There is one of the things that I thought was interesting, since it's been in the news a lot about the start times, what's called bell times. There's no contingency or anything for that. So I don't know whether that means that they're not anticipating that they're going to have any recommendation ready for this coming fall, that it might be a longer term project.
So the start times, the stop times would affect the budget?
Right, well, because it would increase transportation. Well, actually, the superintendent had made two recommendations. One was to push the start time of high school later, so high school students could get more sleep, more in tune with their biological clock.
I could always use
So
more
we
sleep.
said,
I remember in high school
yeah,
it was a
I know.
struggle.
I can't believe it. Every morning I'm pounding on my 17-year-old's door. Get up, get up.
Why can't they go to sleep earlier?
But well, that's a
Well,
whole
that's too
that's a whole
practical.
different discussion, Jeffrey. But it would, because there would need to be some additional bus services just in order to do the routes, you know, in a more compressed time frame. You'd need more buses now. It's all very staggered that buses do multiple routes, and so if you compress it, it would mean a little bit of money. But the other recommendation that he had made was to extend the length of the elementary school day, because we have the shortest elementary school day in the whole state. And that would definitely mean more money, because you'd have to pay teachers for a longer day. And so, well, budget negotiations for raises weren't in there. You know, that gets mentioned, like, okay, you know, this still isn't taken into account and it may change, etc. But there was no such language for bell time. So I don't know, it might mean that they just don't think that anything definite.
Well, what comes to mind to me is the capital expenditures. I mean, our county is growing rapidly, you know, not just for births. I'm talking about people moving in here. So I don't believe we're really keeping up with that growth. Every time I turn around, we're having expanded classrooms, and the teachers are struggling with that. The other aspect of it is that I don't know how long, it was probably before Ken was born, that we're still talking about the educational gap.
Right.
And you know, we haven't resolved that yet, which to me is a simple solution, looking at the individual student, bringing up individual programs to assist them, and cutting down on the classroom size so the teachers can spend the time to bring a student's abilities or capabilities up.
Well, you know, that's an interesting thing. I just want to throw out one thing, because there's sort of some talk that's swirling around the Board of Education, the superintendent's offices, because some comments the superintendent made at Harvard over the summer, they just keep circling around and circling around, because apparently when he was there, and I've heard this multiple times, that, you know, among the comments he made was that he was sick and tired of hearing about the achievement gap, that Montgomery County parents were a piece of work and were obsessed with equity. And
He said that?
yes, that's what I've heard from people who've said that they've heard it from someone who was like in the room. And that would have been last summer, and it's still circulating around.
Well,
And
he's not
so
he's not in
it's-
favor with the state either, because the state and the superintendent,
They're butting
Yeah,
heads.
they're butting heads.
Yeah,
really.
and I don't know whether that really means like that. I doubt, knowing him, that means that he really, you know, isn't interested in closing it. It may be just that he is just sort of, Montgomery County is a
We have high
unique taste, you
expectations,
know,
yeah.
and like dealing with it, and how people have, you know.
Well, related to that, what was the buzz about the possibility that he was going to become New York City chancellor?
And that's
Right.
the
He was one
last.
of the four
That's the last one. We
finalists.
got to go to
Right.
commercial. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was in the running for that, and in terms of being out of favor, I mean, the word was that state, you know, Arne Duncan put the kibosh on
and
that.
that's
Right.
the last of it. So we'll be back after these messages. We're back. So Ken, 2014 looks like it's going to be a busy year. What do you think?
I think so, and I'm sitting right next to a person with the last name of DeWinter, and I'll take the name Winter for that. We're right in the winter season right now, but even in this winter season, we're getting very excited about what's going on election-wise, and looking at candidates for elections, and we have a county
you
election.
We mentioned there's two elections in particular.
We have
you're
the
looking at.
county
Which ones are
elections,
those?
and that's the biggie, county election for us, and then the state elections later on. In both instances, there's some interesting, well, I won't say conflicts, but interesting parties involved. And for the first time that I remember, in terms of long-term candidates, this is the first time we've ever had 3 candidates, solid candidates, I would say, for county executive.
And who are they?
Well, it's going to be the usual suspects, Doug,
Doug
Ike,
Duncan.
and now Phil. All three of those are very viable candidates, and they come from different molds, and I think it really gives the people of the county an opportunity to look into the backgrounds and choose the candidate that they like, because there are a couple of problems here, and that is one, that two of the guys have been exposed to whatever's going on in the county and all the things that they've been involved in. And even though the third guy, Phil, is very involved in county business, he's not been in that position. And so that changes the dynamics a little bit. And so I'm very interested in this race, because I want to see if really that the program that comes from the third candidate impacts, whether he wins or not, it has nothing to do with it, but does it impact the programs that are going on now, which are somewhat different from
Well, it's
his,
interesting because
in his
having a
view.
three-way election is kind of like when you had Ross Perot and Clinton and Bush, that it just kind of really changed the dynamic when you have three people who can really polarize the population.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be one person, I won't mention any names, be a little spoiler, and have the other two have an opportunity to take over and win. That's the way I look at it, but I'm not going to mention any names, but you can imagine
Well,
which one.
Actually, Doug Duncan hasn't been on the ballot for a long, long time, and
That's
the
right.
electorate has changed dramatically. And I personally think, I mean, I've been active for a long time now, and I think people in general are satisfied with the leadership of Ike Leggett. And I think that he's had very challenging times with all the revenue cutbacks these last 8 years, and I think he's handled it very well. And I think that in the end, I think it's going to be a blowout for Ike personally.
Well, you know, that's good speculation, and I agree, you know, what you're basically saying. But you never know what's going to happen if you have the other two there. But one is really going to be a spoiler for the other one, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't
think
know.
that's the same kind of talk that people talk about, like a delegates race, because we've got, you know, there's 3 seats all, and, you know, you could have 6 people. Odd things happen when it's more than just a 2 people vying for
Exactly.
one seat. You don't, you know.
You also
Well,
never know if not to say that it'll be a scandal, but where someone reacts badly or something comes out that negatively affects their campaign.
We'll take Jenny Forehand's seat. You know, she finally, and I knew it was going to happen. You heard it first here. I said that she was going to wait until the session started because she wanted to assure her bills. She now said that she's retiring. Okay, you know that. Now people are really jumping in hard and heavy. And you had one person that was waiting for it. Now they're deciding to jump in too. That's going to be an interesting race there.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Well,
There are a lot of interesting delegate races, just because there's, you know, vacancies and people, delegates running for the Senate seat, which leaves open delegate seats.
A
and
good
there's
example,
some
Susan Lee.
problems, yeah.
She decided to jump in to for the Senate seat. And, you know,
Well, I'm chairing her campaign, so I'm very excited about Susan.
All right, so for 2014, the expected and the unexpected, right? That's the last we'll say on that.
Right.
Okay, so Jeffrey, thank you for being on the
Great to
show.
be
I
back.
see you're wearing your sash, President
Yes, I had
for a
the
day with
I had the
Montgomery College.
privilege of being president for a day of Montgomery College in December, and it was a very exciting day because a lot of great things are happening at Montgomery College.
Well, tell us about it. What's going on in Montgomery College?
Well, 60,000 students, 3 campuses, a very economical education. And not only is it students that are at the beginning of their career, it's a lot of people that have lost jobs or want new jobs and want to be retrained. And it's really an asset for our county that affects everyone, not just the students that are at Montgomery College.
That's fantastic. And so, what did you get to do for being president?
Well,
for a day?
I got to sit in on meetings. We got to read to the children at the daycare center, and we got to film the greeting that the president gives at the holiday time. And probably the highlight of the day was it was the day that the new mascot for Montgomery College, which was designed by a student, and new colors were announced.
And so I'm taking it's purple and white.
It's purple and white.
And
right,
what is the
right.
mascot?
The mascot is a
Raptor.
kind of bird, a raptor, which I think was maybe the mascot for one of the campuses.
Yes.
Right, I
But in,
believe
but in
that's
terms
right.
of trying to
Germantown.
unify the college,
It was the Germantown campus.
yeah, and try to unify the college, they selected one. This is Dr. Pollard is a dynamic leader, and she's made so many great changes there, and to build on the school, and just that alone, to select one mascot and to unify and increase the school spirit, that is just pretty fantastic.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about the foundation board that you are on.
Well, the foundation board basically supports students in need at the college. So even though it's a rather reasonable amount of tuition compared to other state institutions, it still is expensive for people. And so the foundation basically raises funds to provide scholarships for students.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
You know, it's interesting, you mentioned reading to the kids at the daycare. So I have to make a pitch because I know that there actually is a great need for Montgomery College students for increased daycare on campus, and especially because so many of them are taking night classes,
Right.
that you need daycare that has, you know, not just the traditional, you know, morning to 6 p.m. And I know that there's interest, you know, among some people of doing it, but now that you're on the foundation board, you can advance that cause, because it really would allow access to college education for a lot more students if there were better
Yeah, half the
daycare
battle, I think, with
facilities. Yeah.
education when you've graduated from high school is, besides the tuition and all that, is access and ability to attend because of all of life's constraints, right?
Mhm.
Children,
Yeah.
work, and everything
Right.
else.
Do you
right?
have
I
a
look at
feel
it. I look at
for-
it. I look at
do
it.
you have a feel for what's going on with the county schools and the relationship with Montgomery
Well,
College?
there's a great
few-
collaboration
what-
between the
what-
school
what-
system.
I'm not through. A few years ago, we were disturbed to find out that so many of our distinguished graduates from our schools in Montgomery County were not even able to make it in Montgomery College. Remediation became the word. What's going on with that now?
Well, I think there's excellent collaboration between the school system, which Jane knows about, Montgomery College, and we have another great facility asset, the universities at Shady Grove. And there are groups, there are several nonprofit groups that follow children that, remember, Montgomery College is for all ages now, but there are some groups that follow children that graduate from MCPS through their career at Montgomery College to make sure they do get the skills that
Well,
they
more
need.
so than that, there's two programs. Forgive me for not knowing the names of it. That will take the students in and work with them for the remediation, comprehension, and in particular math, so they can bring them up to, use the term snuff, for college work. And that's one thing I do give toward Montgomery College, because they do a great job of it. However, it reflects back on what we were talking about earlier with MCPS, graduating most of their students, I won't say most, some of their students with only reading at an 8th grade level. And that's really a problem. When I was in private sector and we had to employ a number of these students, we found that we needed to try to do something internally to bring them up to snuff, because we had to hire those individuals. So it is a deep problem, seated problem that we need to basically do.
Well, you know,
so Jane, you have the last word.
okay, well, I was going to say that, traditionally there's a lot of focus on math and like, are we accelerating, are we higher? But really the average person, they don't need calculus. They, they get
Just the
educated.
regular math.
Right, regular math. But reading instruction, formal reading instruction basically stops in 6th grade. But people really need to read at a lot higher level to get by in life than they're being taught.
And it is that
So-
reading
So
comprehension.
that's the last
Yeah.
word, because we're out of time. It's been a fun show. Thank you all for joining us and joining me this week. And thank you to our audience for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Mariana Cordier. Please join us next week at the same time. Thank you.